Well, I wasn't drafted until September of '44 when it was laid in. I had got hurt back in 1936 real bad and things, so I had a lot of problems. But they come to me, the draft board, the two men on the draft board, and they said, your number's gonna fall next week and we put in for your deferment. I said, I don't want no deferment. Then the other one come later in the week and said, your number's falling next week, we're gonna put in for a deferment. I said, I don't want it. Because our country is at stake. And my duty is to try to defend it. So they drafted me on the in September, I believe it was, in 1944. And I took my infantry training at Camp Wheeler, Georgia. Then they sent me to the artillery post in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I took training on artillery. I was prepared on all the artillery places as a gunner on the artillery. The 105s, 155s, and 240s at that time was what the three artillery pieces. So during all that marching, come back home, and so they put me in the hospital. Mm. But I went ahead and finished my training there at Fort Bragg, and I had my pass to come home for 5 days. Had my orders to report to Fort Dick, New Jersey. And while I was there waiting on the bus to come home, the sergeant come up there and got me carried and put my back in the hospital. So I wound up not going to service. They discharged me, I believe, in January of '45. But I felt it was my duty. And I turned down the offer of deferment, but I just wasn't able to do it. When they examined me at Fort McPherson, they wanted to know, said, are there anything that would cause you not to be able to serve? And I told them, that I got masks, had over 500 pounds to fall across me.
Ouch.
And I stayed in the hospital, I don't remember, several week or two. And when I get out and walk, I left the bird hunt. When I get out to say I'd have to sit down on a log or a stump or something, I couldn't do a whole lot of walking. So he messed around there and he said, that hurt. I said, no, sir. He said, well, you can qualify for service. I said, well, all right, sir. So when I started marching, it come back on me and things, and then they transferred my artillery. I took all my training in artillery, and when I got ready to come home from there, then they come and got me put back in the hospital. And from that, they discharged me.
How old were you at this time?
Somewhere around 24 years old. But I couldn't get out and do a lot of walking and continually. It bothered me, it still does.
You had such a good attitude about wanting to serve your country.
Well, it was my duty. I had a wife and 2 children, not on them, but the rest of our country was the state, you know, the freedom. And the freedom is what we're looking for. And I was willing to help defend the country so we would have freedom. Our children, grandchildren, the future generation.
Wonderful attitude. Where were you born and raised? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born in East Point.
Here in
Up
Georgia.
there, yeah, up there around where South Fulton is on Pine Street is where I lived as a little child. My mother died in 1922 when my sister was 2 weeks old. And so from there, we went to live with my grandfather, and I was raised out on Chattahoochee River out around Campbellton, Georgia. On the farm, grew up on the farm. And we, back then, times was tough, you know, during the Depression. And we had plenty to eat, but we didn't have any money to buy anything. And I walked 3 miles to school with the ice spewed up barefooted and without shoes and things. But what little education I got. But
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one brother, he was older, and then my sister was the youngest.
Yeah.
And my brother, he died at the age of 90 years old. He died 17 days past his birthday. And he turned 90 on the 27th of December and died, 17 days later. And my sister, she died at the age of 75. And I'm still hanging around.
You're doing great.
Yeah, 97 years old in last June.
Oh, belated happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, and I preached for 62 years.
Wow. So you're Baptist?
Yes.
Yeah. Where all did you preach?
Well, I preached in Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee.
What was your favorite state? What is your favorite state? Where did you like
Georgia.
Okay. I thought you'd say that.
Yeah. But I've seen some good things and I've seen a lot of bad things in my life and things. The things that shouldn't be in churches. I've seen a lot of that. I started the church in 1963, and we had 154 for baptism the first year.
You must know the right words to say.
Well, the Holy Spirit moved in. It wasn't me, it was you.
You were a good vessel to do that.
But I preached on the radio for a number of years, and I had the #1 program on the radio. Not religiously, but overall I had the #1.
Where was that?
Out of Carrollton, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Very good. Your sweetheart, your wife, how did you meet her?
Well, I was dating another lady, young lady, and from up around Ben Hill, Georgia. And we had just moved into this community, and the man said, "Come on, go to church with me. I got a girl I want you to meet." And so that's the way I met her at church.
Oh. How long did you date?
We dated, I guess, somewhere around 6 or 8 months. We got married in 1938, in February of 1938. We had 80 cents and one few clothes we had. Somebody said, y'all never make it. But we honored the Lord with our tithes, whatever we made, He gave us 10%, and God just moved in and blessed us. And
Were you a pastor at that time?
no,
Why did you decide?
I was playing for dances at that time,
What instrument were you playing?
guitar.
Very good. Did you ever use your guitar in your ministry?
Well, after I got saved, I quit playing for dances and went playing gospel music and singing in the church. And then in 1949, September the 18th, 1949, I preached my first sermon at our home church at Mount Vernon again. And from there, I went to Bible college. For the fourth grade education, I took the examination just like it was Wheaton College, the same thing. I made 1B during the rest. I made A and A plus.
Smart man.
And my professor, he traveled the world over 3 different times preaching. And he was preaching in Russia at that time in 1961. They were talking about people with a great analytical mind. And he said, I've traveled the world over 3 times and met the greatest minds of the world, but I got a man with a 4th grade education, a student, that has the greatest analytical mind of any man in the world I've ever met.
That was a big compliment.
And he said, everywhere I go, I tell them about it.
Do you agree with him that you have an analytical mind?
I asked God for it.
And you were given that.
Yeah.
How did that help you in your ministry?
Well, I never told anybody outside the family circle. Of course, he knew it, but with 4th grade education, I don't want to think I was bragging.
Mm-hmm.
I just used what God gave me, the knowledge and the mind. I used to try to use it for His glory. I never even told a pastor of mine during the whole ministry. It was a family, the family circle.
You saying that, let's back up to when you were a child and you were raised by your grandparents.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me some of the adventures you had as a little boy. I know you had some.
Well, back then, you know, during the Depression, there was very little money. We had plenty to eat. We eat cornbread and sorghum syrup for breakfast. Oh,
I have not enjoyed that yet.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten that yet.
Yeah. But as a boy, we were raised around the family altar. We had prayer every night before we went to bed. We were raised as a Christian family.
Was your grandfather a minister?
No, but he was one of the greatest Christian men that you ever met. My wife, she was a good Christian lady, and so we raised our children up in a Christian home, and because, you know, children don't always make you proud sometimes of some of the things they've done, and I'm not proud of some of the things I've done in life either. But
I want to hear one of those naughty things you did as a little boy.
Well, we used to go out and stay out late, and we wrote 9 on one side of the door and 10 on the other, and they'd say, "What time did you come in last night?" I'd say, "Between 9 and 10.
That's pretty naughty.
Yeah, real naughty. That's what I'm talking about. But I come in at 4 o'clock one morning. By the time I got stretched out, my granddaddy got me out of bed to go feed the cows and the hogs and get the milking done and things so we could get to the field or go to work. And so we, as a family, we used to go to the mill and grind our own meal, and they had a grit mill, and we'd shell a flour sack full of corn, and I'd grind the grits while they ground them meal, and we had grits. They called it mush back then.
Oh. Called it mush, okay.
Yeah, but I said it was grits, like we know them today.
What were your jobs on the farm? What did you have to do to work on the farm?
Well, plow, pick cotton, dig, whatever there was to do, pull the park and gather in the corn, we'd gather the crops in and put it in, and we would take and break up green beans and string them up and hang them up and dry them.
And why did you do that?
Well, it was better than canned beans.
Dried?
Yeah. You'd soak them overnight and then cook them all day. And they called them leather breeches.
Oh, were they tough when you ate them? Oh.
That's the reason they called them leather breeches. They were tough. But I seen them advertised in the market building one time, and I ordered some so my wife and kids would know what it was.
Uh-huh.
But we was married 72 years since me and my wife was.
A good 72 years.
Yeah. When we got married, we had 80 cents in what few clothes we had. So it was tough going.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, I walked to school barefooted with the ice spewed up that high. 3 miles to school. If you live within 3 miles of school, the bus would just pass you on.
Was it a one-room schoolhouse or more?
The 2 rooms.
Oh, big school, huh?
Yeah, they had the high school and the 6th and 7th grade, and then from there, then they had to go to Fairburn to high school, and to get in high school. But I just got through the 4th grade as all the education.
And why was that your choice, or?
No, we had to work to make a living. It wasn't my choice and things because I wanted education, but I didn't get it. But it's been tough through life and things. I applied for a job one time with Sunshine Biscuit Company. And when it come to high school education, I went back and gave the man the application back. I said, I don't have a high school education. I don't have a 4th grade. And he said, well, put down a high school. I said, I'm not gonna put something on there that's not right. And I started out, he said, come back here, I'm gonna hire you for your honesty.
Honesty's the
And
best thing.
I was the leading deliverer. I delivered more crackers than any driver they ever had.
And where was this?
in Atlanta.
in Atlanta.
Sunshine Rescue Company.
How long did you work for them?
I think I worked about 2 years for them, and then went to barber school and barber. I worked as a barber in Fairburn there for 62 years.
And you were a barber while you were a minister?
Yeah.
2 jobs.
Yeah.
And raising a family
Yes, ma'am.
and moving around.
Yes.
A very busy life.
I bought my property in 1944. I bought 18 3/4 acres for $25 an acre.
And where was this that you bought your acreage?
Up in Fairburn, Georgia.
Fairburn.
I still have maintained my home up there. I got a 5-room home. I sold all of it, except 2 1/3 acres. They wanted to build a subdivision back there, so I sold all of it except that. But I still maintain my home.
Well, let's go back to your military days. I know you were in the hospital, but you went through all the training.
Yeah, I went through all the training. I want to tell you about, it was 20-degree weather, and they were training us to go to Europe. I knew that. They hadn't told us, but when they send you north, back then, you know you was going to Europe. If they sent you south, you was going to the Pacific. You're training. But we was out, and they was going to show us how to float a Jeep across the lake with 2 tent hacks and 4 rifles stock. So we put the 2 tent hacks together, took the rifles, the wooden stock off of our rifle, tied it in the corner, put the Jeep on there, and the sergeant said, "Can you swim?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Yes, sir." And he turned to the other boy and said, "Can you swim?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Hit the lake and pull that across that 20 degrees with all your equipment and all that."
Oh my gosh,
Shoot.
you did it.
Yes, ma'am. We swim that lake and pull that Jeep across that, float that Jeep across that lake.
How many times did you have to do that?
Just
At once?
time.
Thank goodness, huh?
And then when we went back to the barracks, took a cold shower. We didn't have no heat. We didn't have no heat for,
Makes me cold.
well, it was cold. But that's one of the most, that I remember more about it, because I got so cold that night.
I
And
bet.
we didn't have any heat in the barracks because we were going to the cold countries in Europe. Yeah. But it was rough.
Well, tell me something else that you did in your training.
Well, crawled through with mud and things there, just nothing but mud, just in the water and mud. And crawl under the barbed wire fence and them shooting live ammunition over you. Every 5th bullet was a tracer bullet, so you'd know to keep lower than that, to keep from getting hit crawling under there.
So they use live ammunition in training?
Yeah.
My.
Shooting live ammunition over you. And every 5th one was a tracer bullet that you could see.
Oh, you could see it.
Yeah. And It was to make you stay down, see, so you could see about how high it was over you. It's about 18 inches, and you had to stay flat or either get hit.
Did anybody get hit? No, y'all learned fast, huh?
Yeah, we knew better than raise it. And crawled under a barbed wire fence, and it was in a swamp, you know, no mud and water. And all the equipment with you.
How long did it take you to clean your equipment up at night?
Well, in cold
Cold water,
cold water didn't take you too long.
real fast. Well, tell me another adventure, another training fact. What about the marching?
Yeah.
What about the marching? Did you like that?
Well, we didn't do that much marching there in the infantry. Is when I done my marching and things down at Camp Wheeler. We did a 20-mile march for 20 miles with all the equipment and everything. And they, you know, in the infantry, and after we got through with that, well, I trained in the BAR, and then I trained with a machine gun, and then on those artillery pieces, the 105, the 155, and the 240s. There was the 3 artillery pieces. I was qualified in all of them. I was a gunner.
Was that difficult to learn how to be a gunner?
Well, it's all in code, you know.
No.
And
Tell me about that.
well, of course, I never did go overseas, but in the training, they got set up and then you, about halfway between there and the front line, and they're practicing shooting at target. Well, you get the information of how much the elevation there, if you short of the target or overshoot it, they give you all the bad course in the code, and you just radio it back to the artillery piece so they can make the adjustment. You give them, they make the adjustment, and so it's zero in on the target. See, the object in artillery is not actually to kill people. If you try to wound them, it takes a bunch of people to take care of a wounded soldier.
So if you shot one and killed one, you were more effective if you wounded one and had
Well,
2 or 3
leave
extra
him
people.
laying there, see if you kill him. But if you wound him, it takes 2 or 3 to
Right.
get him back, see. So your object is try to bust the artillery shell just above the ground, not hit the ground, just above, so the shrapnel would go out and just wound them, you know. That was the object of the artillery.
Did you enjoy the training?
Well, it was the experience in life that I wouldn't take anything for.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard and things, but I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. One thing I learned to do is to live with people, to get along. Because all of you in a barrack and things there, you got to try to get along, you know, and learn. It was a great experience, and it was something that I've always cherished, the things that I learned to try to get along and to live with people that, just like now, it's a great help to me now for living with all these people that's what I learned in the Army. See.
How did being in the Army help you as a minister?
Well, it helped me learn how to deal with people more, and to get along and deal with people. I had a young man to ask me, he said, I've just started out in the ministry. And you as the elder minister, I would like to ask you what advice you have for me as a young minister starting out.
And what did you give him?
The best advice he'll ever have. Learn to be a good listener.
Oh my, exactly, exactly.
The best advice he ever got. Learn to be a good listener.
I'll remember that.
If you listen, people tell you what you need to know, you don't have to ask questions. They'll tell you what you need to know, and a lot of things that you don't need to know.
I bet you have heard some secrets, haven't you?
Yeah, if you'll just listen.
Well, tell me then about listening. Can you think of one incident that was kind of funny?
What, in the service?
In the service or in your ministry? Both of them.
Well, in the ministry, I had a lot of things that was, funny, but they were serious too. And I learned in marriage counseling, just put one of them had said couldn't get along, man and wife couldn't get along, put one in the chair over there and one over there. And sat back where you listen and let them do the talking. Let them do the talking. And that'll do come to your getting them back together than anything I ever had. Let them do the talking and things, and I had a young couple separated over $10.
$10?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had already left the church, and they wanted me to come back and counsel with them. And my wife said, he's funny about that, said he don't go back messing with any after he leaves the church. So we agreed that they meet outside this church community, and so I put one there and one there, and I said, now which one wants to talk first? Well, during that conversation, I found out they'd separated over $10. So I told him after, I said, give your wife $10.
Might as well, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you've got a good sense of humor. Tell me something that was funny you remember from the military.
Well, I had a young man that he just couldn't march, he just couldn't stay in step and things. So the colonel was coming. And the sergeant called him up front and he said, I want you to go back to the barracks and get under the bed and don't come back. Don't come out while the colonel's there. I said, I want him to see you trying to march.
Now that was one way to solve the problem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did he do it?
Yeah. Yeah, he went back to the barracks over and got on the bed and that's what the sergeant told him. But there are a lot of little funny things that happen, and But the main thing of being in service, you learn to live with other people. You learn to get along. It's been a great help to me for living here, you know, among people that you didn't know. It's been a great help to me to remember the things that I learned in service, to try to use them now.
Well, tell me about your stay in the hospital. It wasn't like it is today at all, was it? The nurses all had white uniforms and...
Well, I don't remember if I just exactly the uniforms and things, but I was in the hospital on several different occasions, and they give you good service. I mean, look after you in the military.
Mhm.
That they want to keep you well so you can be able to perform your duty at that. But I think I was in the hospital on 3 different occasions and things, but I was always, you know, treated real good and things. And
Well, back then, didn't they have wards where there were many people? Or did you have a room with maybe one other patient?
no, it was a ward,
Uh-huh.
mostly.
Was that okay with you?
It had to be. That's where they put you.
I hear you on that. Well, how was your adjustment from civilian life to the military life on your food?
Well, that's where I learned to eat eggs, you know. We always cooked our eggs done. When I got up there, they break 2 eggs in a bowl and they pour 2. They dip one pouring them out and the other dipping them in your plate. And I told him, I said, I like my eggs done in that. He said, you ain't no rest of sport, you in the Army.
Did you learn to eat them or learn to leave them alone?
Yes, I learned to eat them.
Any other food like that?
Well, most of the, basically the food was good and things.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you went out on maneuvers and things, and if it come a rain,
Become a what?
I say if it come up a...
Oh, if it came a rain,
A
okay.
rain, you know, and you're out on maneuvers, your food, you get wet and things. But you still had to eat it or drink it.
Did you have like sea rations? Is that what they're called? In the can?
Well, you had that, but that's most, they learned you to eat that. But most of that was for you after, if you went overseas, the sea ration. But KP duty was something that you didn't really enjoy, you know, having to clean up the kitchen and all. But I did my part of it.
You had to take a turn, huh?
Yeah. I did my part of the KP. But the mess sergeant slept in the same barracks I did. And when he'd get up, he'd wake me up so I could get up there so I wouldn't have to wash dishes and things, so I'd just work in the kitchen.
Did you learn to cook eggs when you were there?
Ma'am?
Did you learn to cook eggs?
Yeah.
Not done, huh? Oh, goodness. Well, can you remember anything else about your military life that stood out in your mind?
Well, oh, it was all about the same, I think. Of course, if I got overseas, it'd have been. But learning it with all those artillery pieces, I was qualified. See, they had 3 pieces. I was qualified as a gunner on each one of them because I knew the code of all of it and things. And to see the results of what a shell could do. They had a house they'd shoot, and then they'd rebuild it, but to see how it would, tear that house up and things was amazing.
Did you keep up with any of the men in the military after you got out?
Yes, I used to watch this man. He was a welterweight champion. I loved boxing. And I used to watch him box. Jake LaMotta. He was a welterweight champion of Pittsburgh. But he and I wound up in the same platoon in the Army. His real name was Jake Drobny. And after the war was over, we went up to Pittsburgh and spent the night with him, him and his wife. We become real good friends. And I won him to the Lord and things. And he told me, he said, you done something for me that my parents didn't ever do. I said, what's that? He said, you won me to the Lord. And he said, I want to thank you for it.
That's touching, isn't it?
Yeah. And I do grafting, they were on my apple trees and things. I got up there, he was going to school to learn to graft.
Oh my.
He had him orchard started.
Up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were the men that were in your unit, were they from all over the United States, or
Yes,
mostly on the East
Yeah.
Coast? Yeah, all over.
Yeah, I had one from Dakota, and I don't remember from where, but there were a lot of them from Tennessee and different, and had well, the German, the son, and they had the German prison camp just right below. And I'd go down there on the weekend and they'd come up to the fence. And it was amazing, a lot of them could talk good English.
So you had a good experience with that?
Yeah, the German prisoners, I talked to them a lot. I was stationed there at Fort Bragg.
Well, this sounds like another thing that we can talk about, but unfortunately our time is up.
Yeah.
So do you have anything to say to young people today about the military?
Well, the military is not like it was when I was there, because I've talked to some after, but it would do every young boy good to spend 6 months in the military like I spent. They'd learn discipline, they'd learn how to live with people, they'd learn how to take orders.
Well, it sounds to me like that you made the best experience of what the time that you had, and we thank you for your service.
Well,
And we thank you for your service in the ministry too. You've had a good life. And so we'll close for right now, and again, thank you for everything.
well, thank